This is Wrecker. He's kinda loud. He loves explosions.
Seriously? I'm gonna blow it up? The whole stinking thing? This is the happiest day of my life.
And he's just constantly messing around and not taking things seriously, even in the middle of a mission.
Resulting in your brute strength, Crosshair's sharpshooting skill.
Based on his large, hulking presence, his childlike behavior, it's pretty easy to quickly assume that Wrecker is the least intelligent member of the Bad Batch. But what exactly is intelligence? What does it mean to be smart? I think that's a discussion we need to have more often, because in our society, whether you're smart or not, that perception can open a lot of doors or close a lot of doors. Now, when we're kids, the smart ones are the students that do well in tests. They're the ones who always do their homework on time and are able to properly engage in classroom discussions and sit still when necessary. I imagine Wrecker would have struggled in a classroom setting as a kid. He was probably very distracted and hyperactive. Although technically speaking, he's probably like 10 or 11 years old because of the sped up aging thing that all clones have. Now, when we get older, what defines a smart person? Well, I guess they're the individuals who go to the right schools, land the right jobs, start a family, have a 401k, and a nice plan for the rest of their lives. But what if I told you that our perception of intelligence and, who is smart and who's not smart is fundamentally flawed, and that the people we perceive as intelligent are actually just individuals who fit in well with society? These are simply people who are able to conform within a system that was created by and for the majority. I mean, take a look at our school system. It was created during the Industrial Revolution. It was designed to teach kids how to be obedient, learn some basic skills and knowledge so that they can be functional in a society where at the time the majority of people were working on an assembly line. School is important, a basic education is important, but oftentimes it's just not enough, especially in this wonderful world full of riches and technology that we live in right now. And although there have been superficial changes to our school system and curriculums, things haven't really changed that much in the last few hundred years. The actual structure for how our education system is set up has not been updated to meet the revolutionary changes in our society driven by technology like bread gloves. If you think about it, today we're still being educated to work on assembly lines. I mean, we don't treasure critical thinking. We don't treasure independent thoughts. Instead, what our school system wants from us is obedience and the ability to conform. The assembly lines we work in today are just now in offices, where most of us devote a huge amount of time to relatively meaningless jobs. Now, part of the reason why this is because we devote an abysmal amount of resources to education. The United States spends well over $600 billion annually on defense, yet we spend only $175 billion at the federal level on education. And so as a result, we have a very flawed education system that does not fit the need of every student, and therefore, failure in this education system is not an indicator of whether you are intelligent or not. Now, researchers for hundreds of years have been trying to come up with systems to categorize intelligence. One of the more accepted categorizations in psychology includes 4 different types of intelligence. And I'll tell you, I've never met any person who's weak in all 4 of these categories or strong in all 4 of these categories. Like in RPG, in real life, we only have a certain amount of attribute points that we can spread into different abilities. The 4 categories start off with intelligent quotient. This is your more traditional IQ. This involves your ability to critically think, solve problems, recall memories, stuff like that. Tech would be an individual with a very high IQ. Then there's the emotional quotient, or EQ, and that is your ability to have empathy for others, understand your own emotions, and also control them. Think of Omega, for instance, when talking about EQ. Then we have the social quotient. That is one's ability to maintain friendships and create large networks of relationships. Think about individuals like Maz Kanata or Bail Organa. And lastly, we have the adversity quotient, and that is our ability to overcome tribulation and hardship. Think Maul after he gets cut in half and falls down that shaft on Naboo. To make things even more confusing though, in 1983, Howard Gardner, a Harvard professor and psychologist, identified 8 more intelligence. You have spatial intelligence, that is our visual capabilities when it comes to determining the shape of objects, how far objects are, and stuff like that. That's kind of what you want for a fighter pilot like Harrison Dula, or a sniper or marksman like Crosshair. Then there's bodily kinesthetic intelligence, and that is how athletic we are, how well we know our own body and muscles, and how easy it is for us to learn new dance moves or, sports kind of movements. Think of someone like Fennec Shand. There's also musical intelligence, linguistical intelligence, mathematical intelligence, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and naturalistic intelligence. That last one means seeing patterns in relationships in nature, and I think most Jedi fall into this category because of their connection to the Force. Now, these researchers and psychologists, they're going to continue to identify and find more types of intelligence. And I believe that every person in this world is strong in one intelligence category. I mean, some of us might go in our entire lives without ever figuring that out, but when we do figure it out, it is an amazing ability and asset to have. And I think one of the issues why a lot of people don't figure out what they're truly good at is because we don't really spend that much time thinking about what intelligence is. We kind of take it for granted, right? It should be obvious. Well, no, I actually think it's not obvious. You only really understand what you see, what you feel. Everything else takes a lot of learning and a desire to learn. This is why a lot of people miss other types of intelligence. For most of us, the definition of what intelligence is falls along the lines of your more logical mathematical types, your high IQ types, and we don't really think much beyond that. But when you have a very severe deficiency in, let's say, your spatial intelligence or social quotient, it becomes very apparent what it means to have strength in these categories as well. That popular kid who seems as dumb as a brick and fails every math and science course is actually very intelligent. He's socially intelligent. He gets along with every person, not just the jocks and popular chicks, but also the nerds, the goths, or whatever cliques you have nowadays. Now, that popular kid, he's not going to become an engineer, but he might be an executive in a company who's in charge of dozens of engineers, because he was able to find out what he was good at and use his social intelligence to develop a career around himself. Now, looking at Wrecker, looking at his status within the Grand Army of the Republic, one can't help but think that he's got to be relatively intelligent, right? I mean, if we're not just looking at his appearance, but we're looking at what his career is actually like. I mean, he's a commando, a mutated commando, sure, but he's still in the special forces, and that requires him to be exceptional. They don't just let morons into the commando forces. These individuals are usually highly motivated, independent, self-starting people who have a wide assortment of skills and great mental discipline. And trust me, the Kaminoans are very elitist and have super high standards for what they'll accept from a regular clone, let alone a commando. Everything else is just recycled into protein blocks. Now, the first sign that Wrecker might be a secret genius is his position in his squad. He's actually the demolitions expert. Now, for some reason, as a society, we automatically assume people who like to, blow things up are dumb, when it's the complete opposite. I mean, if I really think about it, some of the smartest and also craziest people that I've known were really into explosives or were pyromaniacs. I mean, I knew this one guy, we used to make napalm in the woods behind his house when we were kids, and much later on in life, he was put on a federal watch list because he brought military-grade detonator fuses onto a plane. And he wasn't a terrorist, he was just a Mormon. A really nice guy, really smart guy, because, he was always messing around with explosives, and he had all of his fingers still. And so Wrecker fills in two very important roles within his unit. He's the heavy weapons specialist, which means he operates larger repeating blasters, which create more firepower for his unit. But he's also sort of a combat engineer, an individual who uses explosives to clear obstacles and get rid of enemy fortifications. Yeah, you guys forgot about that, right? Did you also forget the scene where Wrecker is teaching Omega how to defuse a live thermal detonator?
And that's how you disassemble a thermal explosive. There's tons of live ordnance buried in the shipyard. If you trip one, you need to know how to disable it.
Seems simple enough.
No, Omega, not simple enough. I mean, Wrecker isn't just a combat engineer, he's an EOD tech. These are highly trained engineers with balls of steel, and their job is to defuse bombs. Yes, there's some basic training and theory involved, but the struggle between bomb makers and bomb diffusers is a cat and mouse game that is constantly evolving. There's Constant innovation, plenty of creativity, and deceit, making this one of the toughest and most unpredictable jobs in the military. Not only do you have to be able to process information very quickly, perform tasks under huge amounts of stress, you also have to be a really good critical thinker, problem solver, and have nerves of steel.
Well, if you're so sure, here, disarming.
Me? But I only watched you
10
once.
seconds till we're both goners. 10.
Okay, so there's that impulsive and reckless behavior we always see from Wrecker.
I don't know which way to cut next.
Better get it right. 3, 2, 1. Obviously not that one. Too late. Run for it.
Now, if Wrecker was actually using live explosives in this situation, I think this video would be a little bit different. It'd be about Wrecker's sociopathic tendencies, but instead this happens.
Gotcha!
Why didn't it explode?
Ha! Because it's a smoke bomb! You think I let you train with a live explosive? I'm not crazy!
It's a messed up joke. You really shouldn't joke like this with children, but these guys, they're commandos. They kill or get killed for a living, and so their humor is next level too. And not only has Wrecker not endangered Omega, he's given her a real appreciation for what he does for a living, and also given her a glimpse of the stress that EOD techs face when defusing a bomb. To be able to walk that thin line between what is a joke and a deadly accident and make it also a meaningful lesson, well, that takes a lot of intelligence to craft. Also, notice how Wrecker still has all of his fingers. It means so far he hasn't had any major accidents. This alone should prove that Wrecker is an extremely intelligent individual. Sure, his childlike behavior or impulsiveness might say otherwise, but not following neurological typical behavior is not a sign of lower intelligence. As a matter of fact, being eccentric and different oftentimes is a sign of higher intelligence. I mean, isn't it the people who conform, the people who follow all the trends, wear all the clothing that other people are wearing, listen to the music that other people are listening to? Aren't those the individuals not thinking and letting other people think for them? Is that a sign of intelligence? I don't think so. Then there's Wrecker's relationship with Crosshair. We've shown you a lot of scenes where Wrecker is just messing with him. And at first, a lot of people might just be assuming that Wrecker is a child and he's just being immature, but Wrecker never does this to anyone else. Hunter and Tech are also pretty serious, as is Echo, but Wrecker never messes with them. And that's probably because neither Hunter, Tech, or Echo support the Empire. Their personalities don't align with the orderliness and authoritarianism that the Empire represents. But Crosshair, well, actually, he is an Imperial at heart, and I believe Wrecker has very high emotional intelligence and sensed this about his brother, which is why these attempts by Wrecker to annoy Crosshair is really just an attempt to make him take himself a little less seriously, to make Crosshair chill out a bit. I mean, the only other person in the Bad Batch that saw this problem within Crosshair was Omega.
I know what you're going to do, but please don't.
What do you know?
I know it's not your fault. You can't help it.
And her emotional intelligence is off the chart. It's like Jedi level perception. So far, we've proved that Wrecker is emotionally intelligent. He has the skills of an EOD expert, which means he's probably proficient at math enough so that he can gauge explosive power and trajectory. He also has a good enough memory to understand the various components that can be found in a bomb, the various configurations. He also has good problem-solving skills as well. I also want to mention that Wrecker also moves really well for a good guy. I mean, usually people his size kind of lumber along, lack flexibility and agility, so we can also add bodily kinesthetic intelligence to his list of positive traits as well. And that's kind of the point of this video. Every individual out there has a hidden strength. It's just up to us to choose to look at those strengths instead of, focusing on the many stereotypes and prejudices that we have all developed as placeholders for entire groups of people before we actually get to know them properly. You can choose to look at and focus on a person's negative attributes, or you can choose to find that beauty and brilliance within, and who knows, it might change how they react to you as well and create better outcomes for everyone. And there are a lot of broken people in this world. People who have given up or dealt terrible hands in their life. There are people who have been demoralized and forgotten or never realized the true worth they possess. But really, the only difference between being successful or not in our society is being able to find out what one is good at and utilizing those skills to create success. This is what makes the Bad Batch so valid in my opinion. It's not really about their fighting abilities or struggle against the Empire. There are plenty of Star Wars shows that do that better. This is a show about normalizing and humanizing what is a very atypical group of clones who have found their purpose in life and realized their own full potential. And it wasn't given to them easily. They had to fight for it. They had to fight for each other. Ultimately, I don't judge Star Wars too much for mechanics or how solid the dialogue and acting is. Star Wars has never really been high-level cinema, in my opinion. But it does have mass appeal. It's really important to the pop culture, and I think it's important for this kind of content to have meaningful and impactful lessons that can benefit society, especially the younger generations who watch this. They are our future. Filoni's message here is that what's different is often very much worth preserving and understanding. Because there is brilliance in those who walk their own path. There is brilliance in people who find alternative ways to survive the struggles and hardships of life.